Republican-leaning economists and liberal left-leaning economists. And the consensus is this, that we have to do whatever it takes to get this economy moving again. That we're going to have to spend money now to stimulate the economy, and that we shouldn't worry about the deficit next year or even the year after. That short term, the most important thing is that we avoid a deepening recession.
How high a priority are you placing on re-regulations of the financial markets?
I think it's a top priority. I think that we have to restore a sense of trust, transparency, openness in our financial system. And keep in mind that the deregulation process, it wasn't just one party. I think there's a lot of blame to spread around, but hopefully everybody's learned their lesson. And the answer is not heavy-handed regulations that crush the entrepreneurial spirit and risk-taking of American capitalism. That's what's made our economy great. But it is to restore a sense of balance.
His first legislative goal will be to get Congress to pass an economic stimulus package that he hopes will create jobs and put money in the pockets of ordinary citizens. Construction programs to shore up the nation's creaky infrastructure, a tax cut for the middle class, and his first initiatives on health care. But some things he can do with the stroke of a pen.
There are a number of different things that you could do early pertaining to executive orders.
Right.
One of them is to shut down Guantanamo Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Another is to change interrogation methods that are used by U.S. troops. Are those things that you plan to take early action on?
Yes. I have said repeatedly that I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that. I've said repeatedly that America doesn't torture, and I'm going to make sure that we don't torture. Those are part and parcel of an effort to regain America's moral stature in the world.
Can you give us some sense of when you might start redeployments out of Iraq?
Well, I've said during the campaign, and I stick to this commitment, that as soon as I take office, I will call in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, my national security apparatus, and we will start executing a plan that draws down our troops. Particularly in light of the problems that we're having in Afghanistan, which has continued to worsen. We've got to shore up those efforts.
Where does capturing or killing Osama bin Laden fall?
I think it is a top priority for us to stamp out al-Qaeda once and for all. And I think capturing or killing bin Laden is a critical aspect of stamping out al-Qaeda. He is not just a symbol, he's also the operational leader of an organization that is planning attacks against U.S. targets.
How close are you to settling on a cabinet?
Well, I think that I've got a pretty good idea of what I'd like to see, but it takes some time to work those things through.
When are you going to make your first announcements?
Soon.
Next week?
Soon.
You met with Senator Clinton this week?
I did.
Is she on the short list for a cabinet position?
You know, she is somebody who I needed advice and counsel from. She is one of the most thoughtful public officials that we have. Beyond that, you're not getting anything out of me, Steve.
Will it be Republicans in the cabinet?
Yes.
More than one?
You're not getting any more out of me.
You've spoken to some former presidents.
I have.
Any advice, any good advice they gave you?
You know, they were all incredibly gracious, but I think that all of them recognize that there's a certain loneliness to the job. That, you know, you'll get advice and you'll get counsel. Ultimately, you're the person who's going to be making decisions. And I think that even now, you know, you can already feel that fact.
What are you reading right now?
Briefing papers.
A lot of briefing papers?
Yeah. I've been spending a lot of time reading Lincoln. There's a wisdom there and a humility about his approach to government, even before he was president, that I just find very helpful.
Put a lot of his political enemies in his cabinet.
He did.
Is that something you're considering?
Well, I tell you what, I find him a very wise man.
Have you been reading anything about the Depression, anything about FDR?
You know, I have, actually. I was, there's a new book out about FDR's first 100 days. And what you see in FDR that I hope my team can emulate is not always getting it right, but projecting a sense of confidence and a willingness to try things and experiment in order to get people working again. And I think that that's what the American people expect. You know, they're not expecting miracles. I think if you talk to the average person right now, that they would say, well, look, you know, we're having a tough time right now. We've had tough times before. And we don't expect that a new president can snap his fingers and suddenly everything's going to be okay. But what we do expect is that the guy's going to be straight with us. We do expect that he's going to be working really hard for us. We do expect that he's going to be thinking about ordinary Americans and not just the wealthy and the powerful. And we do expect that if something doesn't work, that they're going to try something else until they find something that does. And you know, that's the kind of common sense approach that I want to take when I take office.
There's been talk on Capitol Hill, and a number of Democratic congressmen have proposed programs that are part of sort of a New Deal. The possibility of reviving agencies like the Home Ownership Loan Corporation.
Right. Two points I'd make on this. Number one, although there are some parallels to the problems that we're seeing now and what we saw back in the 30s, no period is exactly the same. And for us to simply recreate what existed back in the 30s in the 21st century, I think would be missing the boat. We've got to come up with solutions that are true to our times and true to this moment, and that's going to be our job. I think the basic principle that government has a role to play in kickstarting an economy that has ground to a halt is sound. I think our basic principle that this is a free market system and that has worked for us, that it creates innovation and risk-taking, I think that's a principle that we've got to hold to as well. But what I don't want to do is get bottled up in a lot of ideology and, you know, is this conservative or liberal? My interest is finding something that works. And whether it's coming from FDR or it's coming from Ronald Reagan, if the idea is right for the times, then we're going to apply it. And things that don't work, we're going to get rid of.
Are you going to make a lot of speeches? Are you going to talk a lot to the American people? You're going to go on television and radio and...
You know, I'm not sure that the American people are looking for a lot of speeches. I think what they're looking for is action. But one of the things that I do think is important is to be able to explain to the American people what you're doing and why you're doing it. That is something that I think every great president has been able to do, from FDR to Lincoln to John Kennedy to Eisenhower. I mean, I think that they were people who were able to say, here's the direction we're going, here's why I think it's important, here are the possible dangers or challenges, but ultimately, you know, this is going to lead us to a better America. And I want to make sure that I can recreate a bond of trust between the presidency and the public that I think has been lost.
The president-elect and Mrs. Obama have already been on a tour of their new home. And when we come back, they talk about the challenges and the excitement of moving into the most famous address in the world.